sadly lacking as far as uniformity goes. And if you take a look at what we've got in our databases ourselves, I think the question you have to ask yourself is, what do you think of the quality of your data? Is it accurate? A lot of descriptions tend to be hand-entered, and as a result, you sort of get variations on a theme by Paganini when it comes to names and naming of companies, naming of products, whatever it may be. All right? And this is the thing that sort of got me going on it because of the fact, and I'll show you in a couple of slides now, when you start incorporating factors like product names and manufacturer names into your OLAP cubes, when it comes to summing things up, if the names aren't correct, you're going to get 2 or 3 entries within your cube for the same company. Therefore, your figures, your summations are not actually accurate. So I went back to the drawing board and I started looking at 2012 with regards to the data quality services, which are new to the product, to SQL Server itself. And I'll tell you, I got stuck in there. I was mesmerized by what actually went on with the product and the advances that they have basically made since the services that came with 2008. But data quality services is a totally new product to the Microsoft line. And I think if you have a chance to play with it and you see it yourself and you can start working with your own data on it, I think you're going to really find that it's going to help you, and you'll probably come to the end of the exercise saying to the conclusion, I don't know how we live without it. All right. Now, if I can just get in here. Right. As Sheldon said, I work for Atrium Networking Corporation in Providence, Rhode Island. I'm the chair of the Oracle SQL Server Virtual Chapter, past regional mentor for virtual chapters, and my website is infogoldusa.com. Right? Just a little bit of advertising. Atrium Networking, we do service monitoring solutions, hardware solutions, and other software solutions, and we're at atrium.net. I always hate these little adverts that have to go in. All right? Now, going back a couple of months, back to the business challenge that I faced, all right? I looked at the data that we had up in my web grocer, and they had products, etc., and manufacturers. At that particular point, we were in the web grocery business, or I was in the web grocery business, and, selling things online, Peapod for those of you who have lived in the East, that type of thing, and selling the information through to customers, etc. Now, the products and manufacturers and the descriptions can be added to the database in many ways if you're going to do this manually. And at the end of the day, you've got a point of entry somewhere along the line. And unfortunately, with the point of entry, sorry about that, with the point of entry being always the weakest point, you tend to find all sorts of variations that come into it and make your data a little bit less reliable. All right? It leaves the descriptions as unreliable, as I just mentioned, and especially when you're trying to do things within your query predicate. If you're doing a couple of SQL Server queries and you're trying to put the name of a product within the actual predicate statement, and you don't have it exactly right or include 15 different varieties of the same name, you're not going to pull out the actual results or the total results, whatever it may be. And hence, any results that you give to management to make decisions on is totally inaccurate, and we know that we really want to try and shy away from that type of thing. Now, with SQL Server 2008, we had the data profiling tests. I don't know if any of you ever played with those things, but they were actually quite cool, but unfortunately, they had really no intelligent solutions to give you. What they would do is they would detect anomalies, but the problem was that they were never able to correct the actual results or give you the potential to correct the results, to modify your database tables, which I'm going to show you towards the end of the presentation. So Microsoft really went leaps and bounds in this particular version of 2012. And I'm looking actually at the CTP of 2014 now, and I'm trying to do some of this stuff in 2014, and it seems to be really operating really cool. So that's actually a good sign. Right. Now, the problem we had up back at my web grocer was the fact that we had weekly modifications to the core data, the information, not the financial data, but the descriptive data type of thing, the dimensions for all intents and purposes, if you want to look at it at a database table. So the problem that I had was that if I went into the table and I tried to fix the table and say Coca-Cola was spelled with a K, both were Coca-Cola were spelled with a K by some silly bugger, and I went and I fixed it. By the end of the week, when they did the weekly updates, Coca-Cola was back with 2 Ks. And it was really a major problem because of the fact that we had weekly refreshers on the data. Right. So we needed another solution, and we'll see how this solution is as I go into the practical demo on it. We'll see how these solutions actually can help us with these weekly refreshes. Now, the OLAP solutions that we had, for instance, we had one particular cube that we were using that had a tremendous demand on the manufacturer and the products that we were trying to report on. The solutions, the OLAP solutions, were least flexible of the whole lot. And that was because if you could imagine in your mind a cube, and you're drilling down in the cube and you're looking for Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola that is spelled correctly, basically speaking, will come out with a certain amount of sales if you're dealing with sales. For example, the Coca-Cola sales within New York City or whatever it may be. However, there may be some entry that some silly boob put in with 2Ks. It's also going to appear within the cube as you drill down to the product level. Therefore, when it comes to your showing the end client or your management the sales for Coca-Cola, instead of having one unified figure, you're back to having two. Now, every time we fixed things up and we sorted everything out, it meant basically reprocessing the cube, and the time expended can mount up. Now, in our particular case with this cube, it took 45 minutes to process the cube. Now, you can imagine the amount of data that we had in there. The fact data was running anywhere between 2 and 2.5 billion rows of being processed. So with the racks that we had and with the processors that we had, it took 45 minutes. So you can imagine the power that had to be used to crunch this thing up every time you made a change to the solution. And the one thing is this, the cube normally was processed only once a month because of the fact that the data updates were only made once a month. However, when it was pulling from reference tables, okay, it did create a certain amount of problems when you had these things producing with Ks and producing with Cs. All right. So enter the data quality services, which I had a look at I want to say back in May or June of last year, I had a look at it, and I said, it's basically, for all intents and purposes, for those of you who have not played with data quality services, it's a set of tools which allows the data steward, that's a fancy word for the BA, the business analyst, okay, to improve upon the quality of the data that's in there. Now, data quality services is not a once-off. Data quality services has to be used a couple of times. It's an iterative process where it processes new data, and we'll see this in a couple of minutes' time, but I want to give you the 15 million foot view. It processes the data, and it gives you the opportunity to have a look at it, and it says, that looks ugly, do you want to fix it, whatever it may be, and you fix the data, and you then process the data, and it goes into the database. But some of the data will be really lousy. For instance, you may be talking about vacation places, and it looking for a vacation, type of thing, and it may suggest Murfreesboro. Now, some of you may live there. If so, I apologize. But it may be that you don't particularly want a vacation in Murfreesboro. You may want a vacation in Memphis or whatever it may be. So it may be that it's the wrong data that has been put in there, and you really have to fix it. And it's an iterative process that you're going to go through to fix the data. Eventually, at the end of the day, of course, you're going to be able to have much more accurate data. Right. But what it does is it produces, and this is the most important thing, and I want to get this across to you. When we go and turn up the data and fix up the data and tell the data, okay, look, tell the data quality services, okay, you say that this is a mistake, but it's actually true, correct it, don't correct it, or this is a mistake, correct it. What it does is it doesn't fix up your production tables immediately. What it does, and I'll show you in the practical demo, what it does is it creates a temporary table, a disk table, but it creates a table that holds the results set. And in holding the results set, what it does is it shows you the value before, in other words, what it did, how it came in, and the value that it's going to update. It could update the data. I emphasize could update the database table with, so that you and your data expert, your data steward, your business analyst, whatever way you want to call them or whatever you want to call them, can go and have a look at and see if it's correct. And if so, you can basically go and reprocess your production tables to ensure that the quality after the run is up to scratch. And I'll show you a piece of code that I developed and to do this type of thing, to update the data quality, update the production tables. And then if you want the piece of code, you're more than welcome to just give me a shout or give Shelton a call, and I'll pass the code on to you, or even pass the database on to you. There's nothing personal in there, private in there. Okay. Now, as I mentioned just about 2 or 3 seconds ago, it doesn't change the original source data set. Okay? Why should we use it? Because of the fact that we can now get, whereas we weren't able to before, because the business analysts never really had access to the tables underlying the database. We can now get the business analyst, I'm going to refer to, I hate this word, subject matter expert. I'm just going to call them the business analyst or the business analyst. We can get them involved to have a look at the output. These are the people that know the data well, and these are the people that are going to be able to help you get your data quality right. Now, normally, just as a retrospect, back to slide 1, I normally, if I'm doing this in presentation, live, what I normally do is I ask people how many people have got perfect data and there's no data quality issues, all right? And I think that's, I mentioned it to you at first, think about it, and I think that anybody who says that their data is perfect has to go to church on Sunday, all right? Manually, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be defining and matching and cleansing the data, okay, which is a combination of man and machine. You have to start off with a manual approach to it. And to be able to tell the system what is a good set of data and what is a bad set of data, which values are okay. Okay, this value is an exception. Okay, you can leave it as it is, and the next time I do an iteration of it, I'll fix it. Whatever way you want it. It will give you the example, it will give you your freedom to be able to say, this is okay, for want of a better word, this is kosher or it's not kosher. All right? And this way, you still have, as the human being over the machine, have control on the final say of what the product does, which I like. How does the computer basically does all the cleansing of your data? How? By programmatically giving you what it thinks it should be and then presenting it to you to manually approve. If you're happy with it, it'll go and fix up your data for you. It'll give you that output table that I talked about, and we'll have a look at it in the practical demo. It will then allow you to choose, basically speaking, to have it fix it, the computer fix it, or you can fix it yourself manually, as we'll see in some of the data. All right? All right. The beautiful part is that it can integrate with third-party data. Now, we won't be talking about that because I haven't got connections through to be able to show you this, but, I'll give you an example of where you could get it. If you have Brady's diary, global business contacts and stuff like that, and you want to incorporate it into your table to double-check addresses and telephone numbers and the like and everything else like that type of thing can be incorporated into it. They're still doing a lot of work on the product, okay? And I actually, when I was in Copenhagen last year, I was speaking to Microsoft, and I asked them what the story was, and they haven't put any GUI at the front to do this, because what their policy is, and I actually had a good chuckle over it, is that they want to see whether or not anybody's going to use it before they put the effort into developing a GUI. So go figure. Right? Now, the other thing is that it can integrate with other data processing products like SSIS, and I'm going to show you a little project that I set up at the very end to run our model via SSIS, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be sitting here manually doing all this stuff every single day. You want to be able to put the agent, schedule it within the agent and make sure that it goes off every single night based upon the results that you're expecting. Okay? So we got a couple of basic steps to get the data quality services up and running. What we're going to do is we're going to create a project. And we're going to refine what we have and create the knowledge base. Now, the knowledge base is going to have all the rules, and we'll see that when we go into the practical part of the presentation. Now, the knowledge base is going to retain all your rules. In other words, when you have Coca-Cola with a K, every time, Mr. System, every time you see Coca-Cola with a K, what I want you to do is I want you to spell it with a C. And we'll see that type of thing in a couple of minutes' time. It's going to perform an evaluation and give you an idea of how many new records you have and how many records were fixed, and you'll see that in the actual model. How many records it suggests that are invalid, because you may find that putting a slash in the name is not really what you want, but some silly boop put a slash in the name, and that's what caused it to be a problem. Or, once again, if you spelled Coca-Cola Pepsi, you certainly want to know about that, and you want to, basically speaking, have the business analyst go and look at it. So we mark all those records that we want the business analyst to go and have a look at. We mark them as being invalid and let them go and have a look at the invalid table and fix them up, and then the cycle starts again. And I'll explain that a bit further later on. It'll generate output and the output goes back to a table, staging table, and we'll have a look at that, and you'll see I'm going to show you what it looked like before and what it looked like afterwards. All right? Now, there are 3 or 4 components to it. There's the server, there's the client, which we'll have a look at, and we'll be working with the client. All right? There's the main activities within the client. We're going to work on the left. You'll see that it says knowledge-based management. What we're going to do is we're going to start fresh from scratch, and we're going to create a knowledge base, and we're going to train the system as to what values we want it to remember. And then based upon that, what we'll do is we'll do an actual cleansing product, which is the data quality project in the middle. We won't actually touch the administration today due to a lack of time. Okay. Another thing that we want to do is we want to basically, speaking the reasons we want to use data quality services, I'm just going to touch over this slightly because I want to get into the practical demo, is the completeness. These are important factors that you have to have in order to be able to work with data quality services, and I'll show you a couple of examples of where it's not complete in the little practical that we're going to do. Is all the data there? You have to have all the data there. In other words, we need a master list of the various different products that we have or whatever you're going to have, and use that as the gospel. Pardon the word, but the gospel, and that's going to be accepted as correct. Is that what we want to do is we want to find out in conformity, or do we care whether Coca-Cola is spelled with a C, a big C, or a baby C, whatever it may be? That may be something that involves, thinking about. But prior to actually creating your project, that consistency, do the values have the same meaning? All right? In other words, does Coca-Cola mean the same to the system as it does to me? Accuracy. Do objects represent real world values? I mean, if you talk about my salary and it comes up to $1 million, that ain't accurate. It really isn't. I wish it was, but it isn't. And then validity, also the same type of thing. Are the values valid? In other words, are they really real? You gave me $1 million. Is that really the value? And the other thing is, are there duplicate copies of the data within the same data? And I'm going to show you within the actual matching portion of the demo what looks like duplicate copies, but they're not in fact duplicate copies. It's just because of the fact that the SKU is different. All right? Now this comes courtesy of Elad Ziklik. This was his concept of the whole object, the whole data quality services phenomena. As you can see, there's down in the bottom left-hand corner is what I want to emphasize is the future client. And they say if we use it a lot, they'll put a client in. Go figure. All right? And there's a lot of other funky things that you'll see as we go on. But this gives you an overall view of what what is actually involved in it. Now, when we do the creation of the model, if you look at the top where it says Azure Marketplace there, these are types of things where you can get reference data brought in from foreign, from the cloud. I haven't actually tried it myself. I don't have cloud connections, neither do I have the bucks to pay for it. There's an engine in the background that basically speaking processes the data, it cleanses it, it matches it, etc. This is the overall picture. It's actually a picture's worth 1,000 words. Okay. Now, in requirements, to be able to play with it, for SQL Server, you either need an enterprise version or you need a BI version. Okay. You must run the installation process first and after you're installed. And actually now with later versions of 2012, it comes in itself. And Master Data Services, you've got to do integration if you're going to use Master Data Services, because the two of them actually do interface, right? Installing the server portion, all right? What you do is you have the installer that comes in there. This is actually Windows 7, all right? And Windows 8 is obviously a nightmare. Basically all you have to do is run the installer. It's very self-explanatory. It comes in automatically and you're good to go. After the installation, within SSMS, and this after having installed DQS portion of the application, you get a few new databases. You'll find in there that there's a couple of new roles, all right, in a database that it's installed on there called DQS main. You must leave that alone. It's great. You, as a person who installed it, will be made one of the administrators. So you have the rights over all the database, that particular database. It's basically carte blanche. All right. There is no API, as I said to you, so you have to work within the native client, at least at the present. Great. Now, being a single write system, this is a major thing. The problem is that the knowledge base is locked in when you're using it and others can't use it. They're talking about making it multi-purpose, but what you can do is you can get Bob to create his own, and you can, basically speaking, you can work on your own particular knowledge base, and you can merge them after a while. Complex things you should really split up, and we can talk about this a little bit later, and you can import them later, and that's again the story with Bob and Jill, who are working on various different portions of the system. Each has his own knowledge base, and you can bring it, you can, basically speaking, go and amalgamate them at the end. All right. Each person creates their own entities and their own domains, and this will all come together in the practical, and the pieces can be imported. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. Okay, here is an example of the data that I had to deal with. Nothing confidential. Some of the stuff has been changed. Now, this is an example. If you take a look at the manufacturer, look at how many ways Kellogg's has been spelled. Now, this is an example, a typical example of data nightmares. Okay, you got sales company, you got sales co, you got Kellogg's with an apostrophe, Kellogg's with an ordinary S, Kellogg's USA, the whole 9 yards. You got every single combination of spelling that you can think of. And this, obviously, when you pass this through a cube, is going to give you more results than you want, and obviously each one is less accurate. Okay, cleansing issues. Are there issues, problems here? For instance, within Excel, I took some various different master lists out to try and have a look at them. Are there duplicates there? These are the types of things that you can find. For instance, raspberry yogurt and vanilla yogurt. Are they to be considered? These are questions you got to ask yourself. Are they the same product, but just different flavors? Literally, very punny. Are they different flavors of the same product? And in our case, they are different products, so we have to leave them there. However, you get all sorts of dirty data in there that's got to be cleansed at first. Okay? Now I want to get down to the demo, and I'm sorry if I rushed through this. I want to, basically speaking, get through the demo and show you exactly how you can put this through the wheels. Okay? All right. Here we are. Like everything else, Murphy's Law states that if anything goes wrong, it will in a practical demo. So I've got old Nashville 0 here in case I need it. But what we're going to do is, as I showed you, this is the platform that you're going to get development on, do development on. What we're going to do is we're going to start from scratch, and what I'm going to do is create a new knowledge base. Once again, the knowledge base is where we are going to tell the system, these are our products, this is what we want to do with them. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. The important thing is we need to give it a master list. All right, so I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to give it a name, and we'll call it Nashville 1. Correctly, and we can give it a description. You don't necessarily have to, but I'm going to call it our demo. Okay, now if you have a base to start with, in other words, you have some predictions from before that you want to base it upon, almost like object-oriented programming. For you, the people that have done OOP, you can base your new object, okay, on a pre-existing object, and the same thing here. But for our demo, I really want to start from new to show you how easy this thing is to knock together. Right? Now, the activity that we're doing right down here at 5 o'clock is domain management. What we're going to do is we're going to create a domain. What's a domain? A fancy word for an entity. Okay. So I'm going to click Next, and it gives me a blank screen. Now, what I'm going to do over here is create an entity. And I'm going to call the entity manufacturer, spelled correctly. Right, and I could give it a description if I want. You can have it as a string, which I want it as a string, but you can also bring in data that's decimal, whatever it may be, integer, etc. Okay? Now, native language English, enable the speller. Yeah, that's fine. Everything looks okay. I think it's good. You put the description if you want. Let's call it our test or demo domain. And we'll say OK. Now that we've created manufacturer, and here's where the kicker comes. Here's where the kicker comes. We have 5 various different tabs over here. We'll be touching the domain we've just said. Reference data we won't be touching. Those are pieces of data that we get from the cloud. But we have 3 other tabs: the domain rules, the domain values, and the term-based relations. And we'll be discussing each of these in the next couple of minutes. The first thing that I need to do is I need to get some basic values in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import some values. Now here's the kicker. This got me because I'll tell you what, I had to kill myself laughing on this one. Guess what? You cannot import your data from a SQL Server table. It has to come in from an Excel spreadsheet. You don't believe me? Here's the thing. There. You've got one option to import from an Excel spreadsheet. Go figure. Now, here's the kicker. Here is my spreadsheet, okay, and I've got manufacturer as the title, so I've got a top line, which is a header. And I have what I believe, for this demo purposes, is a master list of all my manufacturers that my organization deals with. Okay? So this is, pardon the expression, this is the gospel according to our business rules. Now, I recently installed Office 2013. This is SQL Server 2012. Prior to that, I had 2010 installed. And it does not like, when you import the data, it does not like the Excel spreadsheet in anything above 2003. And it'll moan. So this is what I believe Microsoft calls an enhancement. It's a feature that you cannot use their later versions of Excel. As I said, go figure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this because it doesn't enjoy trying to load from 2 places. If I can just close that. Okay. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to import the value over here. I'll do it very slowly. And I'm going to browse to my spreadsheet. And I see that this is my spreadsheet. I created it today. And I'm going to use it. And I have a header in the first row. And I'm going to use, that's right, yes, okay. And I'm going to take the first spreadsheet, first worksheet, and I'm going to click OK, right. And you can see that I've imported a lot of manufacturers. Now, if I go down the manufacturers, I see, okay, Allied, Hammerfit, whatever it may be, and down, okay. Okay, here's Avery. Avery, I've got 2, and that comes from my master spreadsheet. The question becomes, do I want to keep them the same, keep them as individual ones, or keep them the same, keep them individually or make them the same? Well, Office Products belongs to Avery Dennison Corporation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that, Office Products, and I'm going to make it Avery Corp. So I'm going to click on this one first, and the one above, holding my Shift key, and then I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to say set them as synonyms. Now you can see what it's going to do is anytime it runs into an Avery Dennison Office product, it's going to now correct it to Avery Dennison Corp. Okay. However, Avery Dennison Corp will remain the same as we go on and into future. So there's a lot of manual intervention, at least to start off with, but it's really as through each iteration, less and less becomes involved as far as manual and more computer-based. Okay, now let's get down here to my friends down at Kellogg's. All right. Okay. All right. Now, from I deliberately left this in the cube. Sorry, in the actual DQS from prior learning. I wanted to show you this. What it has learned is it has learned to a certain extent that these two variations on Kellogg's really should correspond to this particular version here. So it's already learned that if it gets a flavor something similar to this, which has got a comma in it, okay, it must correct it to Kellogg USA Inc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, I'm going to select this, and I'm going to go up to here, and I'm going to try and set these as synonyms. Okay, this one can't be done. Okay, let's do this one here, and up to here, and see if we can get them to settle. Oh, okay, it doesn't like it. But you get the rough idea because there's a leading value in here. Now, let me just explain this easily enough. I think you get the rough idea what's going on here. One particular value, that Kellogg's USA with the increase that you saw in there, was the major value. So you can't go and change it back and change it to something else, which is Kellogg's USA Inc., which is right over here, right? So if I do this one here, and I do a control, I'm with my control key, I control that, and I go to here, and I set it as a synonym. You can see that where I've highlighted it, it has come down, that this value here is assigned to this flavor of Kellogg's. You've got one master. Let me step back a minute and make this clear because it's often difficult over the web. One value is set within your spreadsheet that you fed in that's going to be the gospel, pardon the pun. And anytime you try and change it to something else, it will say, no, you can't, because it's leading value. It is the value that is accepted as the table of references. So you cannot touch that one, that particular example. But you can see how I've been able to change all the other various different flavors of Kellogg's spelling that you can see there, and get them to be corrected the next time I go and process the data. And I think this is the important thing that I was trying to get at. Okay, now that I've got the data in there, what I want to do is I want to create a couple of term relationships. What are term-based relationships? I'll tell you what they are. Anytime you see the word CO, full stop, period, that means company to a lot of us. But I hate the word CO. Full stop. What I want to do is anytime it sees a CO with a period, what I want to do is I want to change it to company. So I'm going to create a rule that every time I see CO, I'm going to change it to company. Now, that's throughout all the records that we're going to process. I'm going to get another one. Another one is GmbH. How many times have we seen that? Well, I don't like it that way. I want to call it Gesellschaft mit beschränkter Haftung. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put it in here. Okay? Oh, yeah, there's another one. For us who have lived in Europe, in Britain or any of the Commonwealth countries, we tend to use the word KOI for company. I don't like that either because we live in the States. So what I want to do is I want to change this to company. All right? So you get the idea. These are global rules. You can go change them anything you want. And if something comes in and it's cockamamie spelling, you can, every time you want to get it changed, you know, every instance that is picked up can be changed by this term-based relationship. And this will apply all over the whole time, as long as you're using this particular model. So it's not all set yet. What I've got to do is I've got to apply the changes. So I apply the changes. All right? And would I like to publish them? Yes, I want to publish them, please. Okay. So those are the term-based relationships. In other words, affecting every single record. Okay. A domain rule. I want to put in a domain rule as well. Now, in this particular domain rule, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to create a rule, and this rule is going to be no slash. What does it mean? if the manufacturer has got a slash in his name, I'm just thinking of a slash for, just to make things easy for you so you can see it immediately when we go and process the data. I'm going to call it, the rule is no slash. In other words, there mustn't be a slash in the name. Okay, and you can put a description in here, no slash in name. Spelled correctly. Okay, now, also in this particular rule, I want to make sure that it's not funky and that the length of the manufacturer, because most manufacturers are a bit more than 3 characters, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that the name, see if I get XX, I know it's invalid, or 22 or it's invalid. So what I want to do is I want to say the name of the guy who's manufacturing, or my manufacturer, has got to be greater than 3, the len. Okay. And just as I said, in the name, there must be no slash. Okay? So in this particular rule, okay, we'll put in there that there mustn't be any slash. Oh, wait a minute, hang on. I don't want to do that, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm using an and. Okay, so that's no good either. Because all I'm going to be able to do is pick up the names that were fewer than 3 characters and had a slash in them. So let me skip that. Okay, let me just take that out. All right, let me create a new rule. No slash, greater than 3. And I'll adjust that in a minute. More than 3 chars. And the rule here is the length is greater than 3. Greater than 3. Okay, yeah. And let's go back to no slash. No slash means, basically speaking, that the value does not contain a slash. Okay? Right. And more than, spelled correctly, 3 characters. I think you see that. All right? So I've got 2 rules. There must be no slash in the name, and the name has to be larger than 3 characters. So I'm going to apply these rules. Yeah. The rules, they say if the rule, this is something that pops up, regardless of it, whatever you want. It says here that applying the rules will have no impact on the domain manufacturer. Yes, you're right. It won't, because there's nothing in there now. However, as you move on and as you roll on and more names come in, remember, I put in the data thinking that the master list that I have is complete. But the next time new data comes in, it's not going to be complete. There's going to be things that we have to fix. Therefore, we have to be able to cater in advance for new names coming in, and that's one of the reasons why it may not be valid. It may not have any effect right now, but it could in 2 minutes' time when we go and process new data. So I'm going to say yes, and it tells me that the rules were applied successfully. Okay? Great. So I've applied my domain rules, which basically looks at each particular value, and it makes sure that those values that don't comply are marked as invalid. And term-based, once again, what it does is it does a replace. It does a global replace. All right, so I'm finished. I'm going to say finished, and I'm going to publish it to the server. And it's been published, so I go out of here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at knowledge discovery. Now in knowledge discovery, what I want to do is I want to have a look at my data, and I want to have a look now based upon the master list and some actual factual data. I want to be able to have a look at what the data looks like and see what my results are. Funny enough, now you can use a SQL Server once you've got your master list in. So what I'm going to go is I'm going to go into the past Nordic directory, and I'm going to have a look at a table called Table Manufacturer Small, in which case the field in the table called Manufacturer, which is a varchar field, will now map to my manufacturer domain. And I'm going to click Next. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a processing of the data, and it's going to tell me how my values look. All right. Now, I only have about maybe 2,000 or 3,000 in this for demo purposes, and it'll take a little bit longer once you start going and doing this yourself. What this is telling me is that for the domain manufacturer, there were 215 new names, 15 names, okay? 210 of them were unique. Well, 215 new because there was nothing in there in the first place. And the value of the number of records that were in there within the actual pull, because it contains more than just the manufacturer name, were 1,291 records, because it contained various different products and a couple of pieces of fact data as well. Now, this is not the master list that I got from the spreadsheet. The master list only contains the unique, select distinct manufacturer name from my table. This contains all production data. So, okay, I'm happy with that. I'll go to the next. The important thing is, am I complete? Yes, I'm complete. If I'm not complete, it'll tell me that I'm missing values. And those values are on the spreadsheet. What's going on here? Well, it likes Arla food. That's okay. It says it's correct. And these look correct. This is invalid. Why? What's wrong with it? It's got a slash in it. Therefore, what it's suggesting that we do is it's suggesting it using its intelligence, using the algorithms, the intelligence algorithms, it's saying it's going to correct it to that. And I say, okay, that's fine. I like it. Now, this particular one, it says it's going to correct if the value is okay, but according to my master data list, it should. And so on, it goes down here. Down here, over here, this is wrong. The reason that this one is wrong is because of the fact that there's an extra space in here, and it should be, it's recommending that we correct it to this, which is again from the master list. Church and Dwight, Arm and Hammer is invalid because of the fact that it's got a slash in it. That's what we did, etc. I think you get the idea. All right? So, that having been said, what we do is we click Finish, because we're happy with it. What it's done is there are 38 records in this particular case that are correct. There were 5 errors that it's types of errors, and this is grouping it, that it fixes, and invalid, there were 8 with slashes in there. Yes, I want to publish it. And we're out. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to have a look at the matching policy to see exactly, see the stats, how much matched, and how much didn't match against the new data set. In other words, not the master set in the spreadsheet, but the table that we have. The table, that small manufacturing table. So I go back into the product, and I choose the database. Once again, I go to my past Nordic Rally database, and I go to the table manufacturer small, and I just, once again, set my manufacturer name to my manufacturing domain, which is what I created within DQS, and I say next. And what you have to do is you have to set up a rule now. In this rule is relying, if you were to, for example, use manufacturer and the products that they manufacture, which we're not going to do in this particular case because of the time constraints, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a rule, a matching rule, we'll call manufacturer rule. Pretty intuitive. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a rule. Now, this is regards to the statistics. How accurate do I want to? Okay, say Coca-Cola is spelt with a with the proper spelling, except that between Coca-Cola and between the Coca and the Cola, there are 2 spaces instead of 1. How serious is that to saying that it's wrong? Okay. Now, if it's not that serious and you really are prepared to have, 2 various spellings, you're okay. But if you want it to be exact, you have to tell the system before it goes and processes and tells you a comparison of the data that you've got, you have to tell it how accurate you want that system to be. In my particular case, what I wanted it to be is exact. It must pinpoint exactly what it was, and if the weight has got to be 100%. Now, the reason the weight has got to be 100% in this case is because what I'm doing is I'm only looking at manufacturer. Now, if I was looking at manufacturer and product, what I would do is I would say, okay, the total has to be 100%. So the product name is not that crucial to me, but it's got to be similar to product. So let's make that only a 40% importance. But the manufacturer is a 60% importance. This is iteration. This you've got to do to check to see the results you get. Are they accurate or they're not accurate? Okay, and we'll see that in just about 15 seconds. I'll show you that once it's finished processing. This will give you an idea of how you have to play with the various different combinations to get it to be what you want it to be. Right? So I'm going to start the matching process right now. And what it's done is it's come up with some result sets. Now, these are unique things. If I look over here, now wait a minute, just a second, hang on. I've got a whole pile of jacks here. Now they're soft and light, hair conditioner, hair conditioner, hair conditioner. These are all the same. They should not be the same. They should be different. Ah, the UPCs, the barcodes are different. So this means basically in our industry, in the grocery business, the barcodes means different sizes. Okay, like 20 ounces or 32 ounces or whatever you want. So these are actually, in fact, different products. So that's okay. Now, these are matched. In other words, they match. There's a match between what is in the master list from the spreadsheet and what's in the table. You can have a look at what's unmatched. In other words, that are problematic data that we have to go and look at. And what it does is it picks up a whole pile of errors. And there's problems in here probably because of the slash. Jim Beam was not in the spreadsheet. I know that for a fact. Kraft Foods Confections was probably not in the spreadsheet as well, and Maybelline is in the spreadsheet. I don't know what the problem is, but it did not like it. So these are things that we want to get the business analyst, the data steward, to have a look at and see if he can come to some kind of conclusions on it. Okay? Right. Moving on. All right. So there were 210 values that were unique. I'm complete. I've got all the products that I need. Nothing's missing, etc. And I got a rough idea of what I need, and it looks okay, and I think I can proceed. Obviously, it's an iterative process. I can't keep iterating within a couple of hours because I only really have about an hour to talk to you about this. But I'm more than prepared to take this offline and show you a couple of ways that you can go and change the various different combinations. All right, I'm prepared to publish. I'm happy with what I got. Okay, I'm going on. Now that I've done the research and I've created my knowledge base, and now's the time. Talk is cheap. Money buys the whiskey. So what I'm going to do is get my Jack Daniel out, and I'm going to create a new project, and this is going to clean up my data for me. So I'm going to call it Nashville 1. Right? And it's not going. I'm going to use the Nashville 1 model that we just created. Okay, there's the rules, etc., and I'm going to cleanse. All right, once again, I'm going to get the same table because I didn't clean it. All right, small, and it comes in automatically because it's the same model. And I'm going to go next. All right, and I'm going to start the purge. And everything's complete. All right, notice over here there were 840 records that were clean. It corrected 457 records, a couple of suggestions for new ones, and invalid records. There were 34 invalid records. Those invalid records have to go to the BA. So there are 5. Now, wait a minute. It said 34. How come there are only 5? Well, if you add up those with 9 and 20 and all the various different amounts, there were 20 records that had Kraft Foods, etc. in there. And if you look at this and you add them up, you'll see that it comes up to 34. All right. Now, these are problematic records. You can see this one here. The reason is that it's got a slash. These have got slashes in them, etc. All right. And, these have got here. There's probably a difference in here. Yeah, this looks a bit different. Abbott is spelled with 2 T's, so that's a major problem, etc. Now, here's an interesting one. Going over here, those we're not going to put in anywhere. They're just going to an error database table. Here are things that have been fixed. This was corrected according to the leading value, and it gives you the reason why it's doing it. Here's a domain value when we set it up. Okay, it was basically a reason there to remove the slash. Here's the browsers and colors. This was again corrected to the leading value. It gives you the reason. Now here, the term-based relation, here had a CO. The term-based relation, remember we told we didn't like CO, full stop? Now it says company. Here it had a CO, now it's company. Can you see how we get the system to recognize these things and learn? Now, any model, this is the important thing that you got to remember. If you want to evolve this model like you do in OOP, you can create a brand new model based upon this and take it to the next stage. And this is the beauty of the whole product. You don't have to start from scratch every time. So if you have working for Bob next year, and Bob wants the same thing, you can seed off what you've already created and take it to the next step, which is really, really cool as far as I'm concerned. And moving on, there's the amount of correct values. These are all correct. It's based upon the spreadsheet being right, and it's found the various different products in there. So it gives you the breakdown of what you had. There were no new records introduced. It was basically speaking the same amount, and we're good to go. So we go to the next step. Now, what we need to do is gives you a little bit of an overview on the left here of the various different products you have, and it gives you the keywords that are outputs and gives you a certain amount of statistics about it. Now, what we want to do right now is we want to do an output of the data so that we can go and process it. So I'm going to send it to data quality out, and I'm going to call the table Nashville 1. Right? Now, you have an option here to put the data out. I highly do not recommend that you do that. You really need to take out the data plus the cleansing information so you can compare what it was and what it thinks it should be. Otherwise, you just get the data out. So I'm going to export it. All right, it's been exported. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move into SQL Server world. All right. Now I'm going to go into the quality out database, which I have here, and I'm going to do a refresh. And here's Nashville 1. Now, if I open up Nashville 1 and show you the first 1,000 records, you'll see the various different pieces of data. But now what we've got is we've got output figures. These are just GUIDs, not GUIDs, just reference data. All right. Now, I want to swing over here to the manufacturer. You'll notice over here that there's a manufacturer source and a manufacturer output. This is the sources that went in from the source data that we had to compare. And as you go down here, let's see if we can find one that's, hang on, oops, just a second, hang on, give me a minute. Okay. I'm just trying to see if I can find one quickly that was changed. Okay, this would be invalid. There was something invalid in there. Normally what will happen is it would give you the manufacturer's source, and the output is what is changed it to. And this is a domain value that's coming there. Just trying to see if there's anything in there that has been changed. But we'll see that in a couple of minutes' time, those that are corrected. All right. So normally what happens is there may be something invalid in there, whatever it may be. Okay, there is a field over here that tells you what the reason was. Okay, I just want to see if I can find it. It says that this one's correct, which it's not, obviously. Here are some that were corrected. It'll learn. You're going to, with every iteration, you've got to go back and you've got to fix up what wasn't corrected. But here you can see some that were valid, some that were invalid. Now, if I, for example, if I just do a Control R over here and I go Control N, yeah, right, and I push Enter and I go in here where record status, score status equals invalid. And I run it. You can see that it'll pull out the invalid, and it'll also pull out the corrected ones that you want. You can see that these are invalid, etc. You can also change that to corrected. And if I run corrected, there's the corrected ones. And if I run it to correct, those are the correct ones. So I got three different flavors. Okay. Now, what I have right now is I wanted to show you over here. Remember I said to you a couple of minutes ago that what you could do is you could create code to modify your code. To modify, your table. All right. I put together a query here, which you're more than welcome to have, which runs, you can run for in your nightly load, whatever way you want to run it. and what it'll do is it will purge the tables, in my particular case, purge the production tables, and it will split out the result set. So if I just copy this for a minute, and I'm just going to change the table name. I'm going to find and replace the table, and I'm going to call that with 1, and replace everything that says 0, and 3 replacements. What it does very quickly is it'll drop the table and recreate it if necessary. And what I'm doing is I'm going to select everything into a table called New Manufacturer Production, okay, from the production table, which would have been corrected, which is our standard production, okay, place. It's located within the past Nordic Rally. And what it'll do is, first of all, it'll update the records within your manufacturer table based upon what it corrected. Then we come to the second step, because we either have update invalid or we have new. For those records that are new, it'll process here's the insert statement. This is the insert into. Here are the names of the fields. Okay, and here's the select statement to select it into. Where you can see I've got a subquery here that says where the product ID does not exist in the table already for new ones. And for the invalid ones, I want to put them into another table, etc. Okay, which is called data quality out .dbo Nashville 1. All right. From that table, and I want to put it into invalid records. Okay, so let's just run this quickly. Takes a couple of seconds. And you can see over here, while it's executing, I won't do anything, but you can see that I have 3 separate tables here so that the BA can go and have a look at it. You can see that it processed 82,000 rows, 292, 989, and 34 rows, and these are the invalid rows. So I've split it up, as you can see, into 3 particular tables, which is actually quite cool. So the correct ones have gone in, the corrected ones have gone in, but yet I can hook up the invalid one to the BA so that the BA can go and have a look at the data and start the cycle again. Okay, right. Now, I'm almost finished, so please bear with me. I think the coolest part is yet to come. SSIS. This is important because we can go iterate through this all the time, but I can't be sitting here babysitting a system for the rest of my life. What we can do is you can create an SSIS project with Visual Studio 2010 or SSDS, SQL Server Data Tools, to create a project, which we're going to have a look at right now. In this particular project, I've got an old ADB source over here, which is going to go through a new product that they have, new control that they've got in there, which is called a cleansing tool. It comes standard when you do the installation of data quality services. And then I've got a conditional split further on that basically decides where the data should go based upon the record status. If it's split, if it's corrected, it goes to the corrected route. If it's invalid, it goes to the invalid table. And if it's all correct, it was correct in the first place, and it goes to the correct table. So this way, I'm able to split things. Okay. Now, moving into the Visual Studio world, I can talk about this all I want, but talk is cheap again. Money buys the whiskey. Once again, I've got my data source over here, which has got the table in there. All right. There's the table manufacturing small that we all saw. All right. Worked on a different data model. Within the cleansing element, if you go in here, you have a look at it. There's Nashville 0. I'm going to run off Nashville 0 without changing it, which is something I did a couple of minutes ago. Here's our old manufacturer domain, and here's the mapping. What it does is the input column is manufacturer, which is coming in from the table. It must use the domain that we've got created, that we created in the first step when we built up the knowledge base. And the input field will be the source, and the output field will be the alias, etc., and the status will be here. Status is the most important thing. And you can choose all your fields that you want in here. There's manufacturer, input and output, etc. And you can pull the status out of there. The status comes out automatically. So that gives you an idea. And here's your conditional split. All right. Now, it goes the output name, where whatever the output is, invalid, will go where the manufacturer status is invalid. All correct means where it goes correct. And anything that's been corrected is where the manufacturer status has been corrected to corrected. All right. Remember, I showed you that particular column, so you get the idea of what should be happening. So if I can just start this up for you. All right, it's completed. You can see that everything is completed normally here. It's processed the various different rows. And what you could do then is you can go in and have a look at the tables and see what you wanted to see. Once again, the tables can be, allocated to various different people. The invalid ones would obviously want to go back to the business analyst. And in a future presentation, if you want, I can just show you, but I'm going to tell you right now, the values that the analyst has done can be re-imported into your model so that your model is learned from the fix-ups that the business analyst has done. And I think that that's a very important part of the whole project. So I'm going to stop debugging that and go back to the slides now. And I'm going to wind up. Thanks very much for staying just a couple of minutes more. The data quality can be problematic. We have human problems, and that's really the major problem. DQS, like any mining model, and it is a mining model, is able to learn, and that's the important thing. That learning is really, really cool, because the stuff that we had in 2008 really didn't learn anything. All it did was point out things. Data quality services learns data patterns and can detect data duplication, as you saw. Human intervention decreases, and this is the important part that I want you to take away. The human intervention decreases as the models mature. Okay? Better quality data reduces data reprocessing, for example, in the queues that I have to reprocess every 2 or 3 days. The knowledge base can be used with SSIS, as I just recently showed you. Okay? You can get this, once you've got your data dictionary, your model fixed up perfectly the way you want it, you can now kick it off by the agent every single night or whenever you want to do it. Output. Fantastic, because it corrects problematic data, and the data can be sent to the steward or the VA for validation and verification. All right? You have the before and the after view, which I think is really cool. There's less frustration for the end users and decision makers, because they're not seeing 14 different versions of Coca-Cola, which at the end of the day, for all intents and purposes, as far as the model goes and the whole product goes, it boils down to a matter of, efficient utilization of people and troops and the troops around you, etc. And this is really reduces your cost if you have less people mingling in on the data and having to fix the data all the time. But more importantly, really, it's why all of us can definitely benefit from a deep delve into the data quality services. I really swear by this. I'll tell you what, from practicality, I've reduced the labor there when I left from cleaning data. They're still in the learning cycle, but for all intents and purposes, there's not as many mock-ups as there were before. Anyhow, I want to thank you so very much for attending this presentation. I hope you learned something out of it. If there are any questions, I don't know how we can do it. Let me just see. If there are any questions, you want to just change the color of your tab. If not, I'm available. You can get hold of me at steve.simon@sqlpass.org, or you can get hold of me at ssimon@atrion.net. That's ATRION.net, ssimon. And I'd be happy to discuss it with you. It's my baby. It's my rock, my hobby horse. I think this has really got to be the best thing since vanilla ice cream. And I really encourage you to, have a play with it. There's plenty of literature out there on the website. And it's going to make your life a heck of a lot easier. Okay? If there are no further questions, I don't see that there are any questions. I thank you again. And I really want to thank Shelton and all the crowd out there for having me. It's really a pleasure. I have some very good friends that live up in the north part of the state, and Joe Webb is I've known him for donkey's years, and I hope he was on the presentation, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much, everybody.